Welcome back to Hyaku Shiki 96, your favourite billionaire philanthropist. And today I'm going to talk about the Sony State of Play in February and kind of talk about how it proves a point that I've had that actually isn't so commonly held in the video game online space. Let's get into it. I'm not going to sort of like string you on any longer. I don't think that there is a decline in the quality of video games coming out at the moment, and I know that a lot of people do think there is. I think that this recent Sony State of Play goes away into sort of proving what my point really is. So I want to talk about the releases that I'm particularly quite interested in, and then afterwards I'll kind of talk about how that leads to the overall point of this video. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually the very first announcement, which was a sequel to Kenna Bridge of Spirits. And I tell you what, I'm actually quite excited for this game. I really feel like the creative direction of the original game is something for me that I would say is quite filling a particular niche in the games industry that I thought would be more filled than it is. But it really is a fantastic opportunity to see a sequel to that game. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope to see kind of more games pop up with that sort of Pixar 3D animation-esque art style, because I think it translates beautifully onto modern hardware, especially with the capabilities of things like ray tracing. It's going to look fantastic. I'm excited, and from what I've seen so far, it looks to stay true to form to the original. The next game that I want to talk about is they dropped another trailer for Resident Evil Requiem. Stay tuned to the channel. I'm definitely getting that day one, and I've managed to get my hands on the lenticular cover, which I suggest if you're interested in, you do, because traditionally the Resident Evil modern games with lenticular covers, those lenticular covers really hold their value over time, and if anything, sometimes it can even increase the value of the base game. So it's just a good investment if you want to pick up a physical copy to sort of keep your money the most over a long period of time. But regardless, another really cool trailer. I find it interesting that they've included Leon in this game. To be able to bring him back and go back to Raccoon City, that'll be quite exciting as far as I'm concerned. And I feel like I don't want to talk too much about the game. I'm trying to keep like as blind on it as possible. So I've only seen this trailer, and I think it was the first trailer. I've only seen those trailers. I kind of want to experience it for myself the first time, because, you know, I mean, it's a Resident Evil game. I was going to buy it anyway, so I want to kind of enjoy that surprise. So yeah, it's cool to see a bit more of that game coming as well. The next game I want to talk about is Control Resonant. So Control Resonant, I feel like it's going to be an interesting departure from the first Control game. So I haven't completed the first Control game, but I've played a few hours of it and I was quite enjoying it. I made it no secret in my top 10 games of 2025 video, which I put up here when I spoke about Alan Wake as being like my second favourite game that I played last year. So yeah, it's a brilliant game. I love what Remedy are doing at the moment, and I feel like Control is like where they found their footing, it looks like. So Control Resonant, hopefully it will be even more of that creativity, and I like that they're not afraid to completely change the formulas of the games and to come up with something unique and exciting. For me, it just speaks to the quality of the creatives that are over at Remedy, and I'm quite excited to be able to pick up and play that game, so looking forward to it. And the next game that I would really like to talk about is Pragmata. So Pragmata, I'm kind of like not 100% sold on. From what I've seen on the gameplay and the style, I think it looks creative and unique. Again, part of what I like about Kenna is how it stands out. I kind of really enjoy seeing new and different things. I mean, I've been playing video games for like 25 years or something like that, you know, since I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I really like seeing new things at this point, because I've played so many games, and a lot of games in the industry tend to follow certain trends. So seeing this, I feel like it has a lot of creative flair and vision behind it, in sort of a blending sci-fi and perhaps different and exciting ways for mainstream video games anyway. So I'm interested to see what it is. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to pick it up myself, but I do know that there is a preview available, a demo that you can get. So I'll probably check that out when I have some spare time, and there's a small gap in my backlog, I suppose, and see whether that's for me. So that was cool as well. The next game that I would really kind of like to talk about is the Rayman 30th anniversary. I mean, I'm a Rayman fan. You can see I got it on the PlayStation 1 wall. I mean, like right there, like, yeah, right there. I've got the original Rayman and Rayman 2 on the PS1. I really like the original Rayman. It's one of the first games I ever played, and I just don't think we'll get a game like the original Rayman again. The other Rayman games have been good, but that original kind of art style and creativity, for me, it's definitely one of the pinnacles of 2D gaming, even if the game is obscenely hard for absolutely no reason. I really like to see what this new collection is, not only because it's getting a physical copy, which is great, but for me, I feel like I don't like to unnecessarily just buy a game because it's been remastered, especially because I'm quite happy playing all the versions of games. I don't really rush to them. I like the accessibility that they bring, and I think it's good for sort of consumers in general. They're able to hear about all these games online, especially sort of younger players. They can hear about these games online that we might have played when we were growing up, and they get to try them out now, which is really cool. And also people who played them but don't have those old consoles anymore get to play them again too. Really cool. But I think the main thing that pulls me into this and wanting to get it myself versus actually just thinking it's a really good idea is just the kind of like museum elements, concept art, an original playable first build, first level. There's almost like, you know, video documentary where we get to hear from Michel Ancel and a bunch of other things like that. So for me, those extras are actually, yeah, probably worth buying if it's not too expensive. There's also a bunch of multiple versions. I think they said there was like 5 versions of the original Rayman. I've got 2 because I've got the Game Boy Advance version and the PS1 version. So I'd love to sort of play around with the other versions. I've heard that they all have kind of different sound and feeling to them all. So that one was kind of cool. I wasn't surprised because I already saw the news about it being rated, and the creator, you know, Michel Ancel, kind of already admitted that it was coming. It wasn't a shock, but what was a shock is we got a physical edition, and that pretty much quite closely available digital as well, so that's cool. So yeah, I feel like I kind of want to talk about the big moment next, to follow it in a somewhat chronological order anyway. However, for me, I feel like Konami was really kind of a heavy showing here. We know that in recent years Konami perhaps slacked a little bit, I suppose. They kind of took a step away from games and they've been slowly coming back, and I feel like this is the sign that Konami really is committing all the way to being back. And what's so exciting about them committing is they have great IP. I mean, it's no secret they've got fantastic IP. They've had so many great games. Some of them, let's face it, like are not coming back, but some of the big ones are finally back. And I mean, I really liked, again, another Metal Gear Solid collection. I've been getting into Metal Gear Solid, and I already have Metal Gear Solid 4 on PlayStation 3, so I don't think I'm going to pick that up, but I like that it is because I know a lot of fans have been wanting that. And again, in terms of accessibility, it's always a good thing. However, the next thing absolutely shocked me. So, new Castlevania game, Belmont's Curse, looks really cool. I don't really know the names of the studios too well that are on there, but from what we saw in terms of the gameplay, it looked really, really cool. I have to admit, like, I will probably be sad if we don't see a Ayami Kojima cover. I mean, those days are probably gone, let's face it, but the art for original Castlevania is really cool. But I do feel like Castlevania is more than that original kind of art style, and this new take on it's quite exciting and interesting. It looks, I would say, like a good way to reinvent the series, and the gameplay looks really fluid, and it reminds me of Dead Cells. Maybe even the Dead Cells people are working on it. Like I said, I don't know the name of the studio, but Dead Cells was a great game that I really liked. So I would love to really see this game, and I think for me there's a very, very, very large amount of interest, and there's a high chance that I'm going to pick this up. As you know, I enjoyed playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night and the Dracula X Chronicles last year, so safe to say Castlevania is a series that I'm now a fan of, and I'm glad that I got into it now when a new game's coming out. We'll see what the prices does, but from things in the past, I think, you know, Castlevania games are games to pick up physically before they become grotesquely expensive. I mean, Castlevania Symphony of the Night on PS1's like over £600 on eBay last time I checked. yeah, I think the next thing as well that really interested me was Silent Hill Townfall. It being set in Scotland and having, again, that perfect sort of retro analog horror kind of feel to it. I feel like the music sort of hook with the piano was really, really cool, and it sounded true to the sort of feeling of Silent Hill and its sort of musical style. And I think as well, just the visual design of the monsters and everything else kind of being sort of medical apparatus related. I'm quite excited. It'll be interesting to play the game in first person, but I particularly don't have any issues. I felt like when Resident Evil went first person, it was a good choice and it worked really well. So I have kind of like the same hopes here. If anything, again, originally in all the Silent Hill games, a lot of people liked how the point of view was determined by those fixed camera angles. So, you know, the developers could hide things or reveal things as and when. In a modern third-person camera, it's not really quite the same. A first-person camera, again, gives you a little bit more limited field of vision. So maybe that can be something they can use to greater effect. Either way, I don't know too much about the game because I haven't seen the transmission yet. I'm looking forward to watching that probably very soon for the Silent Hill Townfall. But for me, it's definitely a game I'm very interested in. I thought Silent Hill F was fantastic. So yeah, looking forward to that too. Very, very strong showing from Konami. The next game I want to talk about is Saros. So Saros looked like a game to me that really builds on what Returnal did very well. And I really love, again, this sort of like visual eclipse imagery to it. I think personally the Housemarque are kind of like, I suppose, underrated as developers, because whilst their games are selling quite well at the moment, people don't perhaps talk about them as much as they should. Returnal's fantastic. So I can't wait to see how Saros is received, and I hope that it does well. It's definitely a game I'm interested in. I don't think I'll be picking it up day one though, just because I don't think it quite reaches the level for me to pick it up with all these other games that are coming out. But very cool nonetheless. Okay, so that about covers it for the things that really interested me. My wallet was definitely crying while I was watching the broadcast, because this year is going to be quite stacked with great PlayStation games, and I think the only really perhaps notable difference is there isn't an overpresence of first-party games that people can point that out. But obviously, we know that's because of all the cancelled live service games. That's ultimately going to have a delay on production in terms of that, but I feel like the third parties are well plugging in the gaps. There's going to be a lot of exciting PlayStation software, so that's honestly quite awesome. Okay, so I really would like to lead into the main thrust of this video, which is talking about how that state of play proves that modern gaming is in a better situation than a lot of people think. I feel like a lot of the arguments I hear kind of tend to focus, I suppose, on this idea that there's a decline and that the golden age has passed and things like that. And whilst I think it's definitely fair to have your preferences of generations and to prefer all the generations of games, I feel like a lot of those things are driven either by nostalgia, in which I feel like we perhaps confound our memories and experiences of the game with the quality of the games and perhaps that experience in those parts of our lives. Some people do that. I also think as well at the same time, it can also just be a matter of preferring certain kinds of styles. I mean, if you love 3D platformers, then you're absolutely going to love older generations, because it's definitely a neglected genre that's not quite as popular anymore. And I mean, it's kind of always like that, really. The game generations and development changes. There are different fads and trends. I mean, at the moment, like I said, we've had lots of attempts at live service because that's a high grossing model when it works well, even though most live service models don't do well. It's just a case of weighing up positives and negatives to prefer. But I think when we take out the preference elements in terms of what kind of games we like, there's more than enough great games that are still coming out. And I don't think we're in this starved situation. I do feel like in terms of first party offerings between Microsoft and Sony, they haven't been as frequent, and that's partly due to management mistakes with all the live service games in Sony, and also perhaps the longer development cycles that are taking place. There's very much this sort of like quality over quantity approach. I feel like the releases we're getting generally are really high quality. I think the bar's higher than it's ever been in terms of storytelling, cinematics, design, animation, music. It's like professional level now, and I feel like the industry as a whole really is benefiting from that increase of experience and wisdom. Development processes are getting streamlined, archiving is coming into place, and as well we've had the emergence of the indie scene, which is really strong at this point. Not only just sort of limited to like the Steam ecosystem, but it's spread out across all major consoles. Big developers and publishers are having their hands in promoting all of these games. We're getting loads and loads of good games. I could literally, like I said, take this state of play and point at all these great games and say that I genuinely think that there's something for everyone, or almost everyone anyway, in this state of play. And that's what I think is quite good. The market has really adapted to fill a wide range of consumers, whereas I feel like in the past, it's kind of worked, I would say, towards more specific target audiences. Because ultimately when you make any piece of media, whether it's a book, a comic, a game, a film, a music track, your intended audience, whether that's a subconscious or a conscious choice, affects the kind of stylistic and creative choices that you make. A good analogy I could use to back up is if you were translating what somebody was saying, and this person that you were translating was like a fancy aristocrat, and you were translating to just a casual, everyday, normal person. When you were translating, you would want to kind of reshape the form of the language from that aristocrat to make sense to somebody, because maybe there are sort of higher class word equivalents that if you were translating from an aristocrat to an aristocrat would make sense to them, but that wouldn't make sense to somebody else. I hope that kind of gets the point across. What people want and how people make the games affect those kind of like personal reactions you have to them. And I really like to see the level of strong diversity that's in the industry at the moment, and that the creatives are spreading out and making games for all sorts of types of people. And I feel like as well, the way social media works, they just amplify some of those negative narratives of decline and things like that. I mean, we could go back to the Greek philosophical days where we have literal records of people saying about how children are really bad now and they're not as good as they used to be, and it's going to be the downfall of civilization. And I mean, we still hear those things today, right? That's what's interesting. It's an attractive narrative, this decline. And what I really think is, it's just like a time like any other. There are good things, there are bad things, and ultimately we're still in a great privileged position to be in so many good games, and companies are listening to us. Our voices are amplified and stronger than ever thanks to the online communities, thanks to the internet. We're able to get those messages across, get feedback out to developers, participate in open betas and stuff like that. And for me, I just think it's a fantastic time to be playing video games, and for me the Sony State of Play really typifies what that is. We're going to get some great games this year. I hope you're excited too. So of course, let me know what you thought about the State of Play broadcast. And as well, whilst you're at it, I'd love to hear what you think about the idea that video games are declining. Like I said, I don't really feel like that's the case. I feel like video games are just as strong as they always been, just with different positives and negatives that really depend on your taste. But overall, I think if we look back in an objective manner and say video games are still great, creators are still working hard with a strong passion, and if anything, the industry is catering to more and more people, more and more games are being made. I think the problem now is we just need to know where to look to find those games, because there's almost too many good games coming out. But regardless, I would still love to hear what you think. And of course, if you think that I am wrong in any way, I'm more than happy to hear what you have to say. However, I do kind of have to end the video here. As you know, I am a billionaire philanthropist, and so I kind of need to meet behind the scenes with some very important and powerful people, because they would like my opinion on how to solve important world crises, or really, I mean, they're probably going to ask me for money. So good luck to me, and I'll catch you on the next one.